Hey, welcome back to another episode of A Heartful of History. I'm Selene Castrovilla, and I am so thrilled to be here with these talented, amazing men. I've got Gary Golio, author, and I've got E.B. Lewis, illustrator of many books, but we're going to concentrate today on The Soldier's Friend, which is about Walt Whitman. It is a stunning book, as you will learn. So, guys, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you. Having us.
I really appreciate it. Gary, I've known you for years, you and your wife, and you never cease to amaze me. We just had a conversation where you amaze me even more, and you're really a very calming person, so thank you for that. And EB, you have always been my art idol. I mean, wow. The first time I met you, I'm sure you don't remember this, but I was unpublished, okay? And we were at a conference, SCBWI, Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators Conference in the Poconos, and it was called Spiders Spin Your Web, okay? And I met you, and I said to you, of course in jest, I said, too bad you're not E.B. White, because of Charlotte's Web, And you said, yeah, too bad I'm not that white guy. You're so funny. And you are... When I went to your talk about your art, I always loved your art. Like I bought your books for my kids. I hate to say, I love all illustrators are amazing, but for some reason your art speaks to me. I can't even tell you, like it just hits my heart. So beautiful. And when all I ever wanted was for you to illustrate one of my books, and then you did, and it was the best. You illustrated my Seeking Freedom book, and wow, what a gift!
What a book! That's how I choose them by story. I'm a storyteller.
Yeah, that is,
and that's
so
in the
glad.
Story of that just got
That is an amazing story, and I want all kids to read it. Of course, I want us to make money when we sell it, but it's not that. It's the story needs to be told. The story needs to be told, and I will tell you guys, this book, The Soldier's Friend, is another one of those books. Okay, I read it and I did not expect to be affected the way I was. This is a stunning, stunning book. Both of you guys, it's just the collaboration between the two of you is all about heart. It's about heart, and it's a story that everybody needs to know. It was unexpected. It was unexpected.
And it's timely. It is very timely,
Absolutely.
Especially what we're going through right now. It is very timely. Yeah,
it is. Why don't you guys tell us what, Gary, you want to talk about?
First, I want to clear up something.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the conversation, believe it or not.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, I do.
That's good.
And what I said was, I'm not the white guy. That's not what I said. What I said, you made the mistake and called me E.B. White.
No, I didn't call you. No, I knew you weren't E.B. White.
Somebody made the mistake of calling.
I said it as a joke.
Oh, okay.
I said it as a joke.
What I said to that was, this is what I said to that. What I said to that is that I said, no, I'm the black one. That's what I said. I'm not E.B.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I said. I said I'm the black one. So yes, E.B. White and E.B. Black. We get them all confused.
I said E.B. White. No. I said E.B. White because it was called Spider Spin Your Web.
Gotcha. You said, okay, right. And you said,
and because of the show, it was a joke. Of course, I knew you weren't E.B. White.
That's not, but no. Of course, you can say that, but there are countless times that people have made the mistake.
Oh, no, I would never do that.
E.B. White. Yeah.
No.
And the thing about it, it's not for me, E.B. White to be confused. That's a great individual, great talent. Genius, the whole nine yards.
No. It was I was holding the program, and I said, it was because of what it was called. It was just a joke. Just a joke.
No. I mean, and I took it as such, but I'm just saying, people often make the mistake.
Yeah.
I mean, they will have me come up on the stage and say, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to E.B. White. They will say that.
They say that?
Yeah, they do.
You're kidding. Well, that's ridiculous. Everybody calls me Selena, even though my name doesn't have an A at the end of it at all. And I'm like, I am not that girl, that beautiful singer that was murdered. That's not me. I'm and then sometimes they call me Celine Dion. I'm like, that's not even with an S, So I hear you. People want to associate you with the closest name that they know. Yeah. It's really, it's kind of disheartening.
And especially the fact that we're in the same industry.
Yeah. That's right.
It's an easy mistake because they were in the same industry. So I get it.
Yeah.
I do get it.
No, it's ridiculous because he'd be white. Honestly,
He's been dead for a long time.
Yeah.
So I can say I'm the live one,
Yeah, people Gary, does anybody call you something else?
Larry or Barry, usually. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. See,
I can't tell you.
Ridiculous what people do. It really is.
I tell you how many times we'd be sitting, and this was more so about 7-8 years ago. Susie and I would be sitting in a restaurant usually, and all of a sudden I'd go, "Gosh, here it is," and she'd say, "What?" And it was always the woman in the couple with the guy, and she'd go, start talking to him, and I knew what it was because I've had people come up to me and say, "I love your show." And I'm like, God. "Oh, you think I'm Larry David? Oh,
wow.
No, I love your show. Thank you so much." I said, "I'm not him." I go, "Yeah, I know, but you're funny anyway." I'm like,
"My God."
So yeah, I get,
Wow. Now that you say that, I can see the result.
Yeah,
I wouldn't think,
if I took off the hat,
you take off the hat, no, he looks like Picasso too.
Wow.
Only recently, yeah. That's
wow. Wow. I would never, if I ever see somebody that I think is someone famous, first of all, I want to just leave them alone. They're whatever, they're eating or whatever. But second of all, I wouldn't want to make that mistake, because I don't trust myself enough to judge who is who, you know what I mean?
Oh, I had a guy.
We're way off track, so let's go back.
We are.
Let's forget about it.
People will find this amusing, though.
Let's forget about that.
So I will leave it in. I'm not going to edit it out.
No problem.
Okay. So, Gary, you want to tell us about the book and really how you came up with how did you find this story?
Okay. Usually I'm pretty good at this remembering thing, but, there were so many references at the time, because a few years ago, so I guess it was 2019, was Walt Whitman's centennial of his birth, and there was a lot of stuff going on out there, especially because, and it's not a part of my book, and it's a good thing. So I don't know if you saw recently, Bessie Bird included The Soldier's Friend in one of her countdown things at the end of the year.
Oh, that's awesome.
And she said, "Oh, and by the way, Gary does not mention," and it's kind of like, Gary doesn't mention that Walt Whitman was probably a gay man, if only bisexual, but, And what she was saying, I didn't get this, but my wife got it. She said, "Gary, what she's doing is telling people that they can have that in their library and nobody's going to get upset."
Oh, interesting.
And I'm like, whoa, I didn't think about that.
Yeah, that's a strange thing for her to say.
There was a lot of attention also to Walt's centennial because, because he is a gay man, or was at least bisexual. He did have some relationships with women too, fine. But, his longest lasting relationships were with other men. And, but I saw all this stuff, and somehow, because I often go astray, and I was like, gee, look at that story about him. He had a very difficult, troubled family. And one of his brothers, who was actually one of the most stable of the family, was part of the New York Regiment of Volunteers. Volunteered, his brother George volunteered immediately, went to, and he was at every major battle, throughout the war, ended up in a Southern Confederate prison camp. Took some serious, some serious hits there. And later on, when Walt had a stroke, he cared for Walt. So they were very close. So he sees this name on a list, and Walt was a guy who loved to talk to people. And we can say your average people, but he talked to anybody. He loved the humanity of other people, and he loved to hear their stories. And so he was very close friends with the boat pilots and steamboat pilots, carriage drivers in the city. He lived in Brooklyn. And so he was always going to the hospital there to visit with these men, to bring them, little treats or trinkets, to bring them the newspaper, to write letters for them. And so when the casualties started coming in to New York, from New York regiments, he would go to the hospital, and he would bring these men fruit, or he'd bring them candy, or he'd bring them tobacco or stamps to send letters to their families or whatever. And And a lot of these men were not literate, so he would write letters for them. And so then one day he sees a list, because they were printing these lists in the New York newspapers of wounded or dead soldiers, Union soldiers, of course, at that time. And so he sees George, and I forget what the mistake was.
I think it was GW. Was it GW? And then the last name was different, wasn't it?
Yes.
Maybe
and,
it wasn't. Yeah.
I have my book here. Let me just take a look. And yes, G.W. Whitmore, W-H-I-T. So he rightly assumed this was his brother, and the name was misspelled. So he was taking care of his mother at that time, living with her, and he said, they were very close. He said goodbye, and he left. And long story short, he spent quite a number of days looking for his brother.
Yeah.
And he went to all these hospitals, and finally he finds him. And it was after the Battle of
Fredericksburg, wasn't it?
Fredericksburg, yes. Yeah. And what was interesting was that there was a house that the Union troops had taken over, a private home, and it was being used as a hospital. And who was there? The forerunner of, in many ways, the forerunner of modern nursing practices, Clara Barton.
Wow.
Apparently, we don't know that, and I think, Walt would have mentioned, we don't know that they met. But what was interesting was that he had been a big booster, like, oh, yeah, Union troops are going to kick, you know what, and we're going to he loved Lincoln and everything's going to be great. And then the boys are going to come home, these parades, we're going to be cheering, it's going to be great. And the first thing he sees, and I don't want to create any trauma here, but he sees men were being very badly wounded on the battlefield. And so he sees a pile of human remains.
Wow.
And he's like, and he visits the battlefield, and he helps to bury soldiers' bodies.
Wow.
And he sees how wounded men are in spirit as well as body. And he says, whoa, boy, I was really mistaken about what this is all about.
Yeah.
But the reason I mentioned Clara Barton is because she was the first person in modern warfare history to address the spirit of the soldier as well. She realized, hey, we fixed up your arm, you're going to be great. No. You're missing your family, you almost died, who knows what happened to you.
Yeah.
Saw terrible things. And Walt, on his own, being a man of great heart, started doing this on his own. And there were some groups that he was allowed to come in. He got permission. He would visit. Now, the lowball estimate is that he sat at the bedsides of 50,000 men.
Wow.
Now, some of those men died in a day. Some of them died over weeks because we didn't know anything about infection and gangrene. We didn't understand. The surgeons would do these beautiful things, and they might have to remove a body part, or they didn't, and you were great, and then you'd get an infection because they didn't clean anything.
Wow.
So if they had just sterilized stuff, the success rate would have gone up dramatically. But anyway, he helped people change dressings. He helped people do surgery, but most importantly, he sat at the bedsides of these men, Union and Confederate, spoke to them, listened to them, wrote letters to their families, cried with them. Wow. They hugged him. He gave them a kiss on the cheek. They thought of him as Uncle Walt because most of the time, they'd come from some other state. This was in Washington, D.C. They didn't know anybody.
Wow.
And he was their friend. Yeah. And he called himself the soldier's friend. And originally the title was meant to be only a friend, but my editor said, we got to have some reference here.
Yeah, I could see why it was changed. No, but sure,
he said to one family he wrote to, he said, I am only a friend visiting these men. And he really was very sincere. He believed that. And
that definitely comes out in the writing.
So when I heard the story, I said, this isn't about Walt the poet. There are books about that.
Right.
It's about, and when I wrote this a few years ago, I mean, there's been so much war and conflict, and I thought, this is really, as Earl said, this is really timely. And it took a while, but it's still timely, I
Oh,
think.
absolutely.
So that's why I wrote it, because I think kids, it's about what one person can do.
Mm-hmm.
Something you and I were talking about before.
And that's so important. And I think for young readers, that's so inspiring. I feel like they're going to be inspired when they read that they should, to do good instead of the opposite that so much is happening, unfortunately.
I hope so.
Yeah. It's beautiful. Your writing is just stunning. You say so much and so little. It's really beautiful. And EB, when now you guys have worked together, is this your third book out together? Fourth? Third? Okay. So do you like decide together to do it, or does Carolyn put you guys together? How does that work?
No, we're friends, and so conversations about art and literature and life and all sorts of things come up.
Lengthy conversation.
And so, we will have opportunity, even in the conversations about, we'll call up and say, hey, how's it going? And next thing you know, we're on the phone for 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the way it goes. And so this particular book came to me prior to Carolyn. Gary discussed the book with me prior to going to Carolyn. Am I right, Gary?
Yeah, well, I mean, you and I met at a book signing in
No. Talk about this particular book.
I know, but I'm saying, and that's how we started then. Because you said,
wow.
I said, I have this book. You might be interested. He said, send it to me. And that began this process. So now.
That's awesome.
If we're talking about something, he says, well, that sounds interesting. I send it to him. And then we go to the editor and say, this is a package deal.
But before that, especially on this particular book, Gary, as he so eloquently explained the story and, the reasons why he chose this, he has that conversation with me.
Okay.
And I'm one of those bleeding hearts. So you sit down and have this conversation about, someone like an individual like Walt, and all of a sudden my brain is going, and I'm feeling that I'm sitting here now rehearing the story, and I've already done it, but I'm hearing him retell the reasons why in this, this man's life. I'm sitting here feeling this now. That's just who I am. That's how I'm built.
I understand.
And so when the story comes to me, I'm already well versed in the story. I already say in my mind, this is something that I want to do. That's an easy one. And so for me, I don't consider myself an illustrator. So let's get that.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. I understand.
No. People assume it is that I do illustrations. There's children's writers and authors, and then there are illustrators of those writings. I don't consider myself an illustrator. I consider myself a visual storyteller. So what I do is I'm actually taking those words and I'm translating those words into visual language. Okay. So it's no different as if someone came to me and said, I speak fluent French. Says, hey, EB, this text, man, this story is this amazing story. And I think it would benefit a lot. We'd be benefited by you translating this book into French. And I was like, let me read. Yes.
Yeah.
And so the same thing. So my language is visual.
Yeah.
So I will take that story and translate it visually into image. So for me, as much as the feeling is written in those words, I have to translate that into image. So I want you to feel the empathy that Walt is feeling towards and sharing towards those men. And that bedside manner, that idea of the connection between the two individuals, two human beings, right? Connecting mentally and physically, and under that condition, you just can't make a picture for that.
Yeah.
Okay, that has to be explained in image as strongly as it is done in word. Okay, so that's the type of stories.
Look at that.
That's the kind of stories that I love. So like your book, perfect example. Those books, if you look at my work, the common thread is human interest. I love stories that tug at the heartstring. because that's what I want to do to you. I want you to feel this. And it's about feeling an emotion. And I think if you read my, the reviews for many of my books, you will see that as a common thread is that the emotion, the emotion, the emotion, the emotion.
Absolutely. You even put emotion into the flag. That painting of the flag. Gary, show that picture. It's stunning. The blood coming out of that flag and
it's a 2-pager, so I don't know. I'll show you the side.
Oh my God.
Oh, you got to pull the blood. Show the blood.
Yeah, show the blood.
Move your hand, Gary. Move your hands.
That brought tears to my eyes. It's bringing tears again to my eyes. That's just so.
Well, because it's explaining what he said. It's explaining about how he thought of what war is and what his country that he loved, his beloved country.
It's
saying.
And you know what? That's also so relatable. Like we all feel that too. So we are immediately 2 ways. We're feeling about Walt, and then we're feeling the same feeling as Walt. So you're totally drawing us in completely emotionally. We are so emotionally invested into this story. It's just, oh my God, it's beautiful. It's like you're what is that word? When you're psychically communicating with him, it's like he's through you. Through your art, you are him. You've become him. It's amazing, and I think
these images. Go ahead.
No, I just think that is your beautiful gift. I mean, you are.
Well, that is for me. For me, that's when I know that I am truly connected with a story. One, my studio is my most favorite place in all the world. I have an intrepid spirit. I love travel. And I've traveled over 50 countries. But my favorite place in all the world is my studio. I love being in that space. That space will dictate how I'm going to approach a story, and you'll know if you're there whether or not I'm listening to music or not. Sometimes the stories are so deep, and I'm so deeply moved by them. I need to turn the sound off. I need to have that connection that you're referring to. To be, turn that voice on because it's speaking to me in a sense. I know when that person that I'm writing about is saying, I thank you for this, and you really need to do this right. You need to, you can't just kind of gloss over this. You really need to do this right. And I want to make sure that I serve that purpose as this time of this person giving me that opportunity and saying, and then I look at it as not that person, but the universe, is giving me this opportunity to put this story out into the world.
Yes.
It's really about leaving something behind.
Absolutely.
And so I got to say this because this is what moves me. This is what I'm driven by. James Baldwin was, after his death, his brother was asked, what would James say about his legacy? And he said, oh man, he said, Jimmy spoke of it often. He said, when they sift through the wreckage and they brush away the detritus, hopefully they will uncover something that I left behind, something that somebody else can use. And that, to me, is it, to leave something behind that somebody else can use.
Absolutely.
And so that's what my books are about. And it's not about, for me, words mean nothing to me. It's about the art. I'm an artist. And as an artist, we're scary people in society. We are. And if you look through antiquity, I'm being serious here, when you look through antiquity, all through antiquity, you will always see that whenever there's an overthrow of power, a coup d'etat, the first people to be persecuted are the artists.
Yeah.
And I'm not just talking about the visuals, I'm talking about the artists, I'm talking about the musicians, the writers, the dancers, all the way across the board. Those are the first that they come after, Yes. It's because what the message the power that we have, so I don't take that power lightly, so it's not about somebody, I want my work to be accessible, I want my work to be understood, I want my work to be moving, and I want my work to last.
Yeah, absolutely, and it will. I can assure you. It's
subjective.
It's
subjective.
It's the humanity. It never, because humanity is something we study, we see different examples in all these things we create, but really humanity never really changes, unfortunately. I'm a little bit of a fatalist about this, I'm sorry. but it's about showing the good that we can, despite all the bad. That's like this story with Walt Whitman, the horror of the Civil War. But look at the good that this man was doing. The one person can make such a beautiful difference.
The humanity of it.
Never just give in to despair.
Yes.
It's so beautiful, you know?
Yes, the humanity of it. It's true.
There's a beautiful quote I put in the back. I just, because it's his words. Oh, no, it's not about. Yeah, he said, the greatest privilege, he said that he received much more than he ever gave, and called his service, quote, the greatest privilege and satisfaction, and of course, the most profound blessing of my life. And the guy who was like the chief surgeon at the hospital where he spent most of his time, Armory Square in D.C., he said, no one person who assisted in the hospitals during the war, no one person accomplished so much good to the soldiers and for the government as Mr. Whitman. Wow, I mean, that's
that's amazing. I saw really your picture of a ward there with that quote, right?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I'm in love with this book. It really struck me. Wow,
yeah.
Wow.
There are a few pictures of. That's a really pretty sanitized version, There they are. If you look closely, you see a lot of things, but I'm not going to point them out.
Yeah.
So, but and there's this gorgeous, I hope somebody's done a picture book on Matthew Brady, as the font photographer. He took a lot of pictures of Walt.
Yeah.
And that is my favorite. It's just such a gorgeous. He was a wonderful man.
Did you use? I know you use live models a lot. Did you use a live?
Not a lot, all the time. I go about my work as a film director. I see what I do is like a film director. My work is very cinematic, and the reason being is that I love the work of say NCYF, and not NCYF, Norman Rockwell, and Maxfield Parrish, and individuals that actually use live models in their process. For me, it's the only way to really tell the story for me, the way I need it, because I need to feel the emotion. I use live models because I'm able now as a director to go to that individual and say, and take the shots. You're not capturing it. No. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's my fault. You're not capturing it. It's my fault. Let me get in your head, because you have to become this individual. And so with a child, with an adult, I don't really care, is that I need you to give this back to me, to feed this to me, And so I need you to be able to become this individual. And I need you to know that in this particular scene, this individual was having this relation, this encounter. And this encounter has to be, I have to feel it. I have to see it. And not only see it, I have to feel it.
Yeah.
And so when I'm working in this case here with the model that portrayed Walt Whitman, he happens to be one of the editors-in-chiefs at the publishing house. And I was sitting there at the office, and one day I happened to be working on the book, and I said, oh, whoa, there's Walt, sitting across the street.
Wow.
And all I needed to do was do some I needed to do some work in terms of hairline and lengthening the beard and all those kind of things. And a little aging, but not so much aging. It was like, he was like dead on Walt.
Really?
And they could see it when I saw it.
Wow.
When I saw it, I said, look, there's Walt. And they were like, yes, he could be Walt. And so now I know that I have an individual that I can make and get another individual that he's going to be at bedside with. So I have these two models. And now I am working as a film. So I'm not only the director,
Amazing.
I'm the camera person. I'm the lighting person. Right. Whenever you watch a movie, and when I watch movies, I look at movies and I look for the stills. Every movie has still shots.
Sure.
So what I think of a book as a movie between two pieces of cardboard. The only difference is that there's no motion. These are still shots.
Yeah.
So as if I'm taking all the still shots out of the movie and presenting them to you between these two pieces of cardboard, which we call a book.
It's kind
And
of like
so
those old, in the old
yes,
movies, those little flaps, those
the
are
slaps,
scary. Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So that's what my books are for me. And so when you see, there's no mistake. When you witness in one of the images and you're moved by that, that was intentional.
Yeah.
Because I made sure, because people read it. I know that without a doubt. And when they see that image of that, the emotion, whether or not it's joy, elation, or sadness, or whatever, pain, you're going to feel it because I made sure that that particular model gave that to me.
That's amazing. Wow.
Whoops.
Wow. Are you there?
It's like your mic cut out there for a second.
Mine?
Oh, there you are. Okay, you're back.
Gotcha.
Yeah, no, yeah.
So where do you find all your models? Are they just people you encounter?
On the street.
You're
I mean,
kidding.
yeah. I
That's
remember
amazing.
walking. Yeah, here's a perfect. So, and I know without a doubt that by how I believe in the universe and in God, that I'm doing this. I'm supposed to do this work. This is without a doubt. This is the work that I'm supposed to do.
I understand.
You
I feel
know,
the same way.
and
Also.
and
Yeah.
so, for example, there was a book called The New King that I did, and it's about a little boy. Takes place in 15th century, 14th century Madagascar, and he in Madagascar. When I did the research, realized that Madagascar is made up of African and Asian mix. This little boy's 5 years old. And I'm thinking, how in the world am I going to find a little Madagascan, little Asian African mixed little child in Philadelphia,
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's my dilemma. And every book presents me with that little problem to solve.
Yeah.
So I'm driving down the street and my car gets to the light and all of a sudden it blanks out. Now, I'm not a mechanic, but I knew open the hood and see I could go in there and jiggle some wires and maybe something will happen, some magic will happen. And sure enough, I jiggled the right wire and it started up. Now my hands are filthy. I got oil all over me and I can't get into my car like this. So I'm like this looking around and there's a restaurant. So I go over to the restaurant, open the door with my arms, and I walk in and little boy, he's sitting there with his mother and father. He's like, I said, I'm sorry to interrupt, but is this your son? He said, yeah. I said, how old is he? He says 5. His mother was Asian, his father African.
Huh.
I said, I'll be right back. I go in the bathroom, cleans my hands up, and come out. And, I said, I am a children's book illustrator, the whole nine. And then I explained to him, what's his name? They said, Buddha. We call him Buddha. His name was Buddha, but we call him Buddha. I said, can I use him? I need him in one of my books. Can I? I said, no, fine. And I explained, and I told him, I give an honorarium, so he'll get paid for this. Oh my God, just it's not a lot, but I want to pay for the time and your time to bring him to my house and all that kind of stuff.
It's amazing.
And but that's how I find models.
Wow.
I go to school. Sometimes I'm in a school, and this one book I did, not Little Cliff and the Porch People. This one is the book on Brown, on John, the congressman.
Yeah. John Lewis?
John Lewis, yes, Lewis.
Oh my God, I love that book. I love
the Chickens.
Oh my God, I love that book so much. It's so beautiful. Oh,
thank you, respect.
Yeah.
So I'm in South Carolina, and I need a little boy to play little John Lewis. And so I go to the school that I happen to go to as a presenter to present, talk about literature and art and what have you. And I said, I'm going to come back to see if I can find a little child. Said this to the librarian. He says, well, shall I get permission from the principal the whole night? I says, yeah, they won't have a problem with that. So I said, well, I don't want to disturb the class, but this is the age. He needs to be at this particular age, 3rd grade. And so they said, well, here's a 3rd grade class. Go in there and you see, and if you find him, just tell him, come outside and point him out, and I will pull him out of the classroom.
Wow.
So I go in and I look around and I see him. See the little boy come back and says, little boy over by the window by the radiator.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. Pull him out, and he is splitting image of John Lewis, little John Lewis. for what I would imagine John Lewis would look like. And it's funny that I chose him because they said, oh my God, he's the one that's struggling so much in the class. He's going to fail the third grade and he needs all the encouragement he can possibly get. This would do so much for his, just for his spirit. And, I was like, well, he's the one, and get him there to the farm. I take him out to the farm. We need to find a chicken farm. Not realizing that this kid has never been around a chicken other than on his plate.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
So scared to death of chickens.
Oh no.
And the feces all over the yard. He's walking through like this.
Aww.
I'm like, oh no, this is not going to work out. And I said, okay. Now, not only he's scared to death, now I get him to have a chicken in his arm because John Lewis loved the chickens.
Yes.
Chickens were like, he was like, his friends, his buddies.
Absolutely.
And so I explained it to him that he has to hold the chicken and he's like, kiss him in the whole 9 yards. And he's like, I'm like, oh. And we spent like 2 hours just getting him to warm up to a chicken, to being in the yard, let alone grabbing a chicken, And so I said, I went to his mother. I said, this is not going to happen. I'm sorry. And she says, okay, let me talk to him again. Spoke to him again. I said, you ready? He said, yeah. I said, okay. And then same thing, same problems occurred. And I said, unfortunately, I'm going to have to get another kid. And as soon as I said, get another kid, he said, give me another try. And he went in and oh my God. By the time we left that yard, you couldn't get him out of the chicken coop.
Aw, I love that.
He was like, the chickens were like under his arms and he was just, it was the cutest thing and the most amazing thing. But I know I'm supposed to do this work. Because, when the book comes out and goes
so much. That's beautiful.
Yeah, so that's, I know this work is
think about what you did for that kid too,
Oh, when I went back to the school to present him and present, to the whole school, I presented it to the whole school and had him up on stage, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
Changed his life.
Amazing.
Those little things are so important. It's what you say to a child. When I was that child.
Absolutely.
I'm going to tears.
Absolutely.
I was that child. And I needed that encouragement. I needed that little bit of just somebody caring enough. And it means so much because what you say to children, man, I tell teachers this all the time. It might be a little thing that you might think that you said to them, but they will take it to heart and they can destroy a child.
And that's what they always remember, those things that they just stay in their hearts.
They will, that little thing that you said that you can't do or you'll never be. You hear these stories all the time about my third grade teacher, my fifth grade teacher said I'll never amount to anything. All those things.
I remember that
all those.
Me too. Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
So I'm an advocate for children.
Me too.
I am definitely an advocate, especially the ones that really need that.
It's so
help.
beautiful. Wow. I'm really glad you shared that. That's because that book, I wrote a manuscript about John Lewis. It's about how he went into civil rights, and the first thing he did was he asked for a library card and he started petition. And so I read your book. I'd already read your book with my kids, but I reread it again for that. And, it's interesting how when you read something again, it always strikes you in a different, isn't it amazing how you get struck in a different way every time? And and it's just, you could just feel, I just felt so much in that book. But I think not reading it with my kids and just reading it alone allowed me to look at it even a different way, and it's such a beautiful book and it's so simple, but so beautiful. Isn't that what we do here? We're trying to give simplicity. We want to show the beauty in humanity in the most simplistic way possible, because that's universal. It's not because we're not trying to dumb it down for kids. It's because simplicity is so important. We need to stop having these crazy, heavy things and strip it down to us, to the humanity. And it's just beautiful. I'm crying. God.
Well, you got me crying over here too, so I'm trying not to wipe my eyes on the camera, beautiful. But yes, my eyes are watered, and I told you, I cry at a heart, at a drop of a dime.
But that's what makes us all,
it makes me me, and so
exactly. We're artists, and I think,
and we're bleeding hearts anyway. So,
do you wonder this? Like sometimes I feel like, wow, blessed I'm to have this. This is what I am. It's not. I didn't choose this. It chose me. I have to write. I have to. So then I'm like, oh, wow, this is amazing. And then I feel like so angry sometimes. I'm like, why do I have to feel these feelings? I would rather, sometimes I just want to, I want to close my heart off.
Oh my God.
You know?
You just, what you said just now, as I say that so many times in that quiet space of mine where I wish that, because I have a brother that, and my sister both are just, they're just tougher individuals, you know, and sometimes I wish I had that strength, you know, that toughness that I see, but I have a different toughness. But my toughness, I think it's tough to be able to be a man and be able to say I cry, you know, to be a man and say I feel, you know. I'm every bit as, you know, as tough as they are, but I'm just have that emotional kick, that emotional,
oh, I know.
that emotional chip, I would say, in me that makes me feel for things. But it also makes me see the world. It makes me present when I travel. It makes me present when I'm in the company of people. It makes me present when I'm in the audience of children. I'm present. I'm there. You know, and
no, it's
I will
really,
feel that emotion. I will feel that, you know, and so it's, there's nothing little, there's no little time. There's nothing that is minuscule in that sense. You know, there's all those times are important for me, you know, because I know it's important times for them, because I remember the time where somebody came and visited the school, you know, and that particular person might not touch me, but somebody in the audience, you know, one of my classmates, that moment, there's a moment in time and that person says something and it touched someone.
Yes.
It changes their life.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. It's amazing.
And so as a child, you don't know that. You don't have the articulation to be able to even explain it. But as an adult, I know without a doubt that happens, because it happened to me. You know, so.
Yeah. No, I agree. I wouldn't really change it, even if I could. I wouldn't, because I'm very.
No, you know what
but I will say, like, it's I used to feel people's pain so strongly that I almost couldn't function. I remember I was working at a stupid job I had to make money, you know, and I think I was writing recruitment advertising. Whoa, how demoralizing! But I remember the day that the Lockerbie explosion happened, and we heard it at work, and I collapsed onto the floor and started sobbing. Right, and my boss said, "Did you know someone on that plane?" And I said, "Oh, just crying for all those people." You know, and I mean, that's what is this? Why are we only going to care about people that are connected to us? We have to care about everybody, you know? And I spent a large part of my life trying to cut that out. And then I spent more time just embracing it, you know, and that's when.
You know what that is? You know what that is that is it is one of the attributes of being an artist.
Absolutely.
You know, that's what that is.
Right.
Because when I sit down and I strip away all the other stuff and just be able, it's the reason I love Giacometti, you know, Alberto Giacometti, the sculptor. He's my favorite sculptor.
Really?
And if you look at his work, yes, it looks as he wrenched out all the nonsense, all the abstract stuff, all the things that are non-essential. And only thing that is left is the essence of man. And so it's been wrenched out. It's been wrenched out.
Wow.
And once you wrenched all that stuff out, right, what you have is the essence.
Wow.
And so for me, when I look at this work, I see the essence of man. And so when I strip it all away and I look and I listen to people like Bob Marley or Dylan or any of these, you know, writers who write these beautiful passages and poets and things like this, one of the common things you always see it in there, but they're pushing is love.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You know, when, you know, John McCartney, you know, John Lennon, his message is love. No, it's like, let's spread the love. It's the love that people, come on, forget all the other stuff.
Yeah.
It's about the love and the care. It's love.
Absolutely. I just wrote that in a Facebook post today that you know, let's all, because today is Martin Luther King Day. This is actually going to come out on Wednesday, so it's not a long turnaround at all. But the juxtaposition of this day, what's happening on this day, you know, but I choose love. I can't control anything that's going on. I'm just going to choose love. And I said, I invite you, my friends, to choose love as well, because what else is there but love, you know? So, I mean, really, love is everything, you know? But, so let me ask you about creating this book. Gary, did you write the whole thing before E.B. started doing his art, or did you guys sort of,
Oh,
since
no,
you
no,
guys
we
were
always,
doing it together?
I always present him with a manuscript. And,
The whole manuscript. Okay. That's
and then
interesting.
I'll say, and I spend a lot of, I don't know what that means, the first draft.
Me
I
too.
write, I write a section.
Yes.
Next day, I go back and I look at what I've written.
Yes.
I work it, and then I bring it up to the next section. And then I do the same thing day after day.
Yes.
Agreed.
That's what I did too.
To say it's a first draft by the time I submit it to an editor is not exactly right, because most of the time there are, every editor is different. Some editors want major revisions, and a lot of editors say it's great. Let's not touch too much, But no matter what happens, I really try to, when I give him something, when I give EB something, it has to have the essence already.
Right.
It has to have the heart, so that he can see the vision. And then he will, he will generate his own vision as a visual storyteller based on that. But it has to be pretty far along, there. And
but you wrote it, so you guys discussed it, and then you wrote it?
No. I told him what I was, I said,
you were working on it.
Or I had already done it, probably.
Okay. I kind of got the idea that you talked to him about, like, that it was an idea and you hadn't written it yet.
No, it is unusual. I mean, I don't know how many of you people listening are aware, if they're not children's book people. Most of the time,
this doesn't happen.
I know it doesn't happen.
Does not happen.
Yeah.
It does not happen. Well, when an editor or a publisher buys a book from somebody, for a picture book at least, so-called picture book,
right,
they choose. And if they're nice enough, the editor, as has happened with me in the early days, they would say, Gary, I want you to take a look at these 3 people. What do you think will work best? But sometimes they just say, this person's doing it. I'm like, okay, fine. I can't. And unless I have like a real problem, I say, okay, but early on, actually, I started because I'm a big jazz guy and big music guy, and I play, and I knew these people through my wife, who's also a very celebrated, she's a celebrated.
Absolutely.
Brother.
Yeah.
And we'd meet these people, and I'm like, and they go like, Gary, what are you working on? I'm like, oh, I'm doing this thing on John Coltrane. Hey, think of me. I'm like, okay.
Wow.
So I started doing this with editors that I knew and said, I'm submitting this manuscript to you, but with the proviso that this person, Rudy Gutierrez or E.B. Lewis or Ed Young, will do it. It's a package deal. And they go, oh, I've never worked with Ed, or I've never worked with E.B., or I've never worked with Rudy.
Amazing.
And that's fine. But you have to find the right editor. But, that is not the way, as you know, that's not the way things usually work. And, because how many authors are that have friends like E.B.? How many people know?
Yeah.
Who are, really good artists who do stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's true.
So
like in our book,
I do that.
The book that we did together, how did that come about? Did you come to the editor and say, to the publishing house or editor and say, I want to work with EB? Or how did they find EB for me? Did they find me for you?
What?
No, I'm talking to you.
My book?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I wanted to work with you on another book. I called you about I don't want to talk about the name of the book, but remember, I contacted you, and I don't even know what happened, but that publisher bought the book, and then they switched it on me. I told them that you wanted to do it, and then they put it somebody else, and that was fine, I guess, but I was heartbroken, but whatever. And so then when I wrote this, I had you in my head the whole time I was writing it. I just felt like, wow, this is one for him for sure. And I did tell Carolyn. Yeah, I asked her, and she agreed. Luckily, yeah,
well,
because I knew this book has so much heart in it. Like you were the guy. So yeah, you were the only one I ever wanted for this book. Absolutely.
No,
and
it's a beautiful book.
She knows
it's a beautiful book. The writing is it's exquisite. And
that book, I would like to invite you back to have a conversation about that, because there's a lot of.
I would love to.
Yeah,
because there's a lot of information about that, and especially who I use as a model. There was a lot of conversations to be had with
absolutely.
that.
Yeah. But it was like, I can't even tell you, when she told me, I was driving when she told me that you were going to do it. And I was like, I almost crashed my car. I was so excited. Like, finally, yay.
Glad you didn't.
Yeah. No, I did not. I might have, luckily there was no traffic around, because I did swerve a little.
I was trying to find your book, but Susie must have it downstairs. But I was trying.
Okay.
Well, we'll get together another time. Where is the book? I had it here. Oh, you know what I did? I always have it out, and then someone comes over and I give it to them.
Well,
I'm not a very good salesperson. I just give my books away all the time.
I have to say also,
that's another gritty book, another gritty story.
Absolutely.
That's a very gritty story.
Is text exquisite and the story very meaningful and powerful. But if you want to see how darkness, and I don't mean metaphorical darkness necessarily, but that too, but if you want to see how shadow, darkness, nighttime is rendered through a really superb artistic lens, then you have to see what Mr. Lewis here, E.B. Lewis, did in that book, if you're watching. Because to do articulate visual images that take place at nighttime in darkness,
absolutely,
that's magic. And that book has a lot of magic in for many reasons.
That's one of my favorite books I've ever done.
Thanks.
That book. It's one of my favorite books. And
long list of books.
Thank you.
The model, wasn't that one of your nephews or something?
That's my nephew, my sister's son.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it's just a story, just the power of that, and going to the fort, because I actually went to the fort. But that's for another day.
Yes, absolutely. But that's how I found it too, with the fort. But yeah, that's a whole other story. But so from when you guys, so you
before I just want to bring this point out.
Mm-hmm.
It's not only for me finding the model is important. As I said, I am a film director, and eventually that's where I want to actually do a short film, because that's where I see myself. That's the dream. People ask, what do you see yourself doing? That's one of the things I want to do. But I actually, in every story, will actually get on a plane, get in my car, wherever it is, and go to the location of where the story takes place. So my book's in Ethiopia. I hopped on a plane and went to Ethiopia. No speaking language, whatever. I go. Wherever the story takes place, because I want the children, the readers, to be able to be transported, or to be who actually know the location. Like the book, I just finished a book on Israel. Speaking of where we are now in this country, I did a book on Israel, and it's a book about a sparrow living in the Western Wall. And I needed to know, does the sparrow actually live in the Western Wall? And what does that look like? But more importantly is that when someone opens that book, who is from Israel, who's been there and knows the countryside, knows the landscape, they should be able to go, oh, he was here. I know that location. I want you to have that familiarity with that book, in that sense, in that image. And the only way to do that is to get and go, to make it all come together. I have to see it. I want to see it. I want to feel it. I want to walk those grounds. I want to take my shoes off and walk, and that's what I did in your book. I took my shoes off when I got to the fort. I want to feel the souls. I want to feel the spirits coming up through me.
Wow.
And the only way to do that is to go.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. That's some fort. Did you see what they sell in the gift shop?
Yes. What?
Souvenirs with the Confederate flag. I'm like, are you kidding me? And I nearly lost my mind on that.
You are in the South though, right?
Well, I looked at the woman and I said, what are you doing? And she said, something stupid, because it was like an ornament. She says, well, don't destroy my ornaments, because as a reference to the statues that they take down. I said, listen, I don't understand how you could sell this here. She's like, why? I said, because this is where slavery ended. And she goes, yeah, well, it started here too. Can you imagine?
I can't.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
It's the times we live in, but we're not going, well, I can't say we're not going political, but all art is political.
That's right. For sure. It's not politics. It's humanity. Okay. It's not politics.
Humanity.
It's
Yes,
humanity.
It's
you know?
humanity. Yes.
The more I look at all politics, it's all a bunch of bull anyway. It's what really matters is humanity, and the politics are just in the way that no matter what side you're on, But
Gets
anyway,
in the
we
way.
digress.
Exactly right. Gets in the way of humanity.
Absolutely. I'm taking a break from everything.
We digress. Yeah.
I don't even watch the news anymore at all. Nothing. But
would they pass this news? No,
yes.
I stopped watching. I stopped watching it a long time ago. Would they pass this news? I don't.
You're
watch
absolutely right. Yeah, that's the only way to really survive is just like let all that go. But so what was the timeline on this book? Now, Gary, so like for example, how long did it take you to write it, the manuscript?
Oh, I have to go and look at.
Well, I'm not asking for precise, but like an idea,
I would say over the course of, before I submitted it to an editor, I would say at least 6 months, 8 months. And because, things, and as I said to you before we started this podcast, E.B. and I there's another book, and I have done my editing on it. He will do his artwork this year. It's about William Carney, who was a Black Civil War soldier who had been enslaved, went to Massachusetts and he was in the first all-Black regiment after Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamations.
Pretty much based on the movie Glory.
Yeah, pretty much. Except this man was a real person, and why did I bring so the reason that I was very careful with this book, as with that book, because we know a good deal about the history and the facts and the details. And, I don't want to just say, Walt sat by the bedsides of a lot of soldiers, and that's true. But, and once again, like you said, you have to bring this to the essence. You have to say a lot with a little. But every little detail, every little hint is in there. Kids absorb it, whether they know it consciously or not. And teachers and librarians who are savvy look at it. And so, 6 to 8 months. And then working with the editor who has a question. And then you go, oh, yeah, true, right. Let me just... Gary, we need the document. Can you document that? Yeah. No, I got all that. Yeah, show you.
Yeah.
So, things take time. And then when the editor when Carol Yoder, who's a wonderful editor, my editor for several books.
Yeah.
And she said, okay, ready to send to E.B. now.
Nice.
So, but even then, if E.B. has a question or if something about his artwork brings up a question, then you have to go back and dive in again and say, let's make sure, or let's adjust this.
Yeah.
This will make, so then you're letting someone, an artist, visually storytell the text, but then you look at what they've done and there's a feedback loop there too. So then you go back and you readjust your writing, perhaps, with even a few words to further heighten what they've done. So, it's a...
And that's the research on my end too, because then I am doing this because I'm the storyteller,
Yeah.
So that means that I have to do very similar homework, is that I got to go and do my homework now, because in my homework I find the gaps or sometimes even mistakes that are missed because, wait a minute, this is what I found, so this is, and so that's that give and take, that thing that actually puts the time in the process, adds time to the process. But it's important. It's important. Those steps are important. And if you ask me how long did it take me to do the book, the same answer I'm going to give for everyone. It's about 45 to 50 years.
Depending on how old you were at the time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, exactly. Because for me, it's all that. It's all of it. It's all. I'm going back and I'm thinking about what I've done and what I've come across.
Yeah.
What I've come across and what I've learned and what I've learned not to, what I forgot, and what I need to remember, and my art changes. There are no two books of mine alike, and so I have to have publishers that are willing to be able to stretch and say, okay, E.B.'s going to do a piece of art. He's not going to give you what you consider what an EB is the emotion, it's the research, it's, the time spent in making it right, and whether or not it's going to be very tightly rendered or very more colorful than most of it, but it's going to be muted color, or it's going to be impressionistically done,
Yes.
or whatever. That's really neither here nor there. That determines that happens in at that particular time when I'm sitting at the desk and saying, okay, now how am I going to approach this? What does this particular story need? It needs a softness. It can't be hard. It can't hit you like that. It needs the mellow, and it has to, like a piece of really fine really fine wine has to sit on your palate a little bit.
Yeah.
And you taste it from the moment on the tip of your tongue to the middle of your tongue to the back of your tongue. And then the bouquet has a smell to it. So all that. So it's a different than drinking a bourbon. So bourbon, sometimes a bourbon might be the reason, the way I need to approach this,
Right.
But sometimes it needs to be something, it might just be just a little tea, a nice little green tea that just sneaks up on you, makes you feel like, let me just take this, and cuddle with this. So all that's approach. And you can't just go, I'm going to paint this as an EB, what you consider an EB. No, the EB is not. Yeah. So if you want this to look like the book I did, this looks like the other side, then this is not going to be the other side. And you don't hire me.
Exactly.
That's not what you're going to get.
EB is not style. That's the thing.
I'm not a style.
I think that all artists, I don't really, this sounds a little harsh, but I don't respect artists that always do the same thing over and over again. That's like taking the easy way out. Like, why would you want that? Why don't you, if you love your art, you're going to embrace it and find that certain, I love the way you described it with the wine. I love that. And that is how I approach writing. And you just made me feel better, because I've been working so long on a proposal. I'm like, and I yell at myself, like, what am I doing? But I have to find that just in the proposal, I have to find the whole thing, So you just gave me a relief, because I've been working on this for months. But yeah, you're so right. And people that do the same thing over and over again, it's like they're phoning it in. They've stopped really being an artist to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one of my favorite people on the planet was Ed Young. He started out by being my Tai Chi teacher, me and Susanna.
Wow.
And he was just a wonderful human being, as well as a wonderful, wonderful artist. And he always used to say, I never do a book the same way. He said, because each story is different. It tells me what it needs, just like EB is saying, right? And so no surprise that when I was visiting Ed several years ago, I don't know, maybe now it's about, 8 years ago. I don't know when it was. And I showed him Preaching to the Chickens. And he said, this guy, E.B. Lewis, he's very good. He said, number one, because every book is different for him. And the other reason is because he's the only person I know who can make abstraction in a realist painting. And if you look at some of those pigtures in Preaching to the Chickens, you're like, whoa, we know that's his eye, the little boy, but it's just a blob of like pigment, So you can look at it abstractly. But anyway, the point was that some of his work is more abstract. But Ed, was like premier. Every book is completely different. Collage, watercolor, ink, painting, brush, whatever it was. And that's what he used. That's what he really, when he said that about E.B.'s work, I knew he was giving him extremely high confidence.
Yeah.
And it's just like one of the things is that I'm sorry, I didn't want to cut you off.
I just wanted to, like what Selene was saying, the word that I heard was for authors, it's voice. Every book of mine, and you too, every book demands a different voice. You can't tell the Bob Dylan story and Bob Dylan, Woody Guthrie, the same way you're going to tell the story of John Cage or Jimi Hendrix. It's just, it doesn't make sense, so.
Because it's not our voice. It's the manuscript. It's the book's voice. It's not ours. I think that is a huge lesson for people to learn that are writing.
For me, just being the artist, if I approached every book that I would probably not be doing illustration now. I would be out of it.
Yeah.
If I was kind of, it was demanded upon me to actually do the last book I did, then I would be gone. I would not be in this industry. So fortunately, they have, and allow me to do what I love doing.
Yeah, well, they'd have to be crazy not to. I mean, the work speaks for itself. It's gorgeous, and well, I think that is a really big problem in our society. Is people want you to sort of just become this. They want to keep you in a little shell, like do it this way, do it this way. I mean, are you kidding?
I call this the chubby checker syndrome. It's those, and the chubby checker.
That's right. That's right.
For his whole life, he did the twist, everything, but he allowed the public to dictate that. Every time they would see him, like, "Hey, Chubby, do the twist."
I know.
And I knew Chubby had more than the twist in him, but he never allowed himself to go beyond the twist. And so every time he was all right, he's 80 years old, and he's still twisting away.
I know.
And it's like, no, I'm past that. Okay, and be confident in yourself and in your art. To say, I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for me too.
Yeah.
It's not just only for you. That you have to allow me to grow. You have to allow me to investigate and fail and make mistakes and learn from the mistakes, and so I can move to the next level. And success for me is I don't believe in success. It's a dead zone.
Yeah.
Because what happens if you reach that pinnacle of success, then there's nothing after it.
Right.
You're there. It's just sitting on that thing that says, "I am successful."
Right.
And so then what happens? You just stop there. You're stuck.
Exactly.
I never want to be best. I don't want to ever be successful.
I agree.
I want to be okay. There's a rung, and then okay, I got there. Okay, now, but there's another one. And I'm there. Okay, I want to constantly be moving up that ladder to the rung until wherever it stops me. Until
Absolutely.
I want to be the artist. There's a wonderful photograph of Matisse, and he's on his deathbed, and he cannot move without aid.
No.
And he's lying on his back, and he has a bamboo pole in his hand, and he's got a piece of chalk at the tip of the bamboo pole, and he's drawing on the ceiling.
Oh, wow.
That's how I want to leave.
I know.
It's that trying to figure out that last mark. As a writer, figuring out that last sentence, that structure, that sentence, of the musician trying to figure out that melody, that chord, the dancer trying to figure out that step. It's all of us are in that process of that one mark, and we're trying to figure out that mark, and that mark stumps us. And it's what drives me crazy, but it also drives me to that next level.
Absolutely.
It's like I want that challenge because if I don't have the challenge, then I'm going to stop what I'm doing.
It's so true.
Every time I walk into my studio, I'm scared to death.
Me too.
I meet a dragon.
Right? Yeah. Absolutely.
I meet the dragon I have a dragon at the gate of the door of my studio.
Wow.
And he meets me. And he knows me.
Yeah.
I mean, he knows me. He's ugly, and there's no charm to him at all. And he has these talons and these teeth, and he's fire breathing and bad breath, the whole 9 yards. This guy is just but he's a formidable foe. He knows me. He knows my weakness and he knows my strengths. And I go in and I'm suited up in armor. I've got my sword in one hand and my shield. Yeah. And I go in and we go into battle. And then sometimes he wins and sometimes I win. But I love the battle. And at the end of the night, we bow and we go our ways. Sometimes, if I'm very, very lucky, if I'm very fortunate, I catch it, I charm him. Because then he's behind my back and he's looking over me and looking and watching. And that night, I leave out of my studio and I'm like, but the next night, I'll see you tomorrow.
Oh, my gosh. Wow. I feel a lot of that, but it's not quite as exciting. I really love what you just said. Like, that gives me a whole new view on art, but you're right. It is a constant battle of some kind for I think art is that constant battle. That's what it is. It can't just be, I mean, I guess art is chaos and we create the art from the chaos. That's what it is, right?
Yeah.
But I think people...
Yeah, I mean, it's all about, and we live in a society that we live in a very fearful society.
Yeah.
Fear is pushed. It is programmed in us.
Absolutely.
It's systemic. It controls the masses.
It does.
It's what's used to control the masses. And so we're afraid of everything. We have children that are afraid. And the thing is that you can't grow if you have that fear.
Right.
You have to work past the fear.
Yeah.
Fear is actually, it's a wonderful element. It's a wonderful ingredient that, I want to have that, because the thing is I want to become fearless. I want to be able to know that the mistake is talking about the fear of making the mistake. The fear is going to be that I want to make the mistake. I want to go be fearless enough to go in and say, this is going to be some mistake. I'm going to take this paper and go in, and I might work 4 days on this painting, and I look at it and I know it's bad.
Right.
And then it's horrible, and I got to be able to go crumble it up, toss it, and start all over again. It was a mistake, but I learned from that mistake.
Yeah.
I needed to have that mistake to move to the next level. If you take mistake out of the process, then you have no learning. You have no growth.
I agree.
And so we have kids. We teach: do not make a mistake. Don't make a mistake.
No.
No,
I know.
make them loud, as Thelonious Monk said. If I heard you make that bad note, next time make it loud, so you don't make it again.
I love that. I know. I feel so badly for kids that they're, it's all about this perfection thing. Perfection doesn't exist, and we don't want it to. We don't want perfection. We want, and when I go to
Yogi Berra said, if the world was perfect, then it wouldn't be.
Exactly. It's so true. So true. He had a lot of good, interesting things to say. That man, very interesting man. I don't know. I also, the other thing is, I also feel like you can learn something from anyone. Like, that's what I was thinking about when you said Walt Whitman loved to speak to people. It's because you do learn from everybody. You learn from everybody. Okay. Anybody. One time I was doing a book talk in a public library. And they had, like, a homeless man was in the audience. They couldn't tell him. He was heckling me really badly. Okay, like through the whole thing, he was just screaming at me, crazy. You couldn't make sense out of them. But I just ignored him. And in the end, he comes over to me and he stares at me and he goes, "You should read How to Win Friends and Influence People." I'm like, damn, I think he's right. I should read that. I learned something from this. Like, why come out and say something? At that moment, like when it was just gibberish. And I did read the book, and I have a lot of feelings about the book, but it did make me think about how to win friends and influence people. So interesting. So
sounds like you should have read the book too, though.
I listened to...
Yeah, you should have read the book as well, right?
Yeah, I listen to everybody with an open mind. And I think, and that's another lesson. I think as artists, we should, but also all humans should. This would eliminate a lot of the problems. Don't go in there with go in there like, oh, I'm going to listen, But Walt Whitman...
That's why I travel.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Absolutely.
That's why I travel.
Yeah, I love traveling.
I travel because I love to travel, because I love, and when I take people along with me on the journey, on the trip, I first let them know that what's important is to be open-minded, and understand that you're going to go into a totally different culture. And it is not going to look like what you're familiar with, and so but be open to it,
Right.
and if you're open to it, you will really be able to experience it, have a true experience of what it's like. Yeah. If you try to come there and try to bring what you know and what you're familiar with and want that to be there, you're going to have a horrible time on this trip. I don't take people like that on the trip.
Yeah, that's true.
I already know where you are from from the beginning. Whether or not what you're going to bring to it, it's that kind of thing. That's right. But it's about being open to all things and to be people. And, I go into places in the world, and I mean, I don't speak the language, but yet I go and I have the best time ever, and I'm there for, I go on trips, I stay 2 weeks. Gary knows, he's been with me, he's gone, the journey with me to another country. I mean, we had the best time, to be open to the world, to those individuals and let them be them. Absolutely. So you can I want you to be you.
Of course.
So I know what that feels like.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's so true. And I think, in a way, our books are like that for kids. It's a journey for them into someone else's heart, into another time, another place, and another person. Like, it's so important, I mean, your book really struck me so hard. Like, I was unprepared for the beauty of that book. And I started to cry. I cried through the whole thing. It's just beautiful. It's just beautiful, the humanity of it. And you know what I love also? That line.
Gary, I know you're what you call him. I know you just made a gesture.
My friend,
yeah.
I'm borrowing Susanna's computer, and she has just come back from swimming. So
okay.
I have to surrender it now.
Okay. Well,
but finish what you're saying.
We'll wrap this up. But the picture in the book where, where the capital is half done, and then in your line that you said it was hard to tell whether it was going up or coming down. Wow. What a bullseye line.
That's one of your favorite pictures in the book, Gary.
Gorgeous. Yeah.
Gary, that's one of your favorite images in the book.
Yeah, and one of the reasons also is because when I saw what E.B. had done, and we didn't talk about this, there was another picture here in the beginning where it shows these. Yeah, okay, it is the same one. On the other side is a base for a statue.
Wow.
And it's empty.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, I don't know how many people got that, but
I didn't actually. Wow, that's amazing.
What's going to be on? What are we going to, at the end of that Civil War?
That's right.
Again, the Confederate States of America. I mean,
that's right.
What was going to be mounted
Those are subliminal things. Those are things that are put in, to make you think. It requires, to understand an artist and understand work, you bring to it, you get from it what you bring to it, And so that means you need to do some work. You need to do some homework, even after the book. Then you go do some research, I'd read about Walt, outside this book, and then come back to the book. And when you come back to the book, you're going to find things in there that you didn't see before, because now you have more knowledge of, now you're going to see, that, whoa, I didn't get that. I didn't see why the artist did or why the author wrote that. Now I get it. There's a little subliminal thing in there that, if you know, it's for you. You catch it. If you don't, you're going to miss it.
That's amazing.
It's unfortunate, but those things go in. Yeah,
that's great. I love that. That's why you really should read books over and over again, and then you get different pieces every time, And honestly, I think picture books are the most profound books of all. I really do. I really do.
I agree. I
agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah. Well, I know you have to go, Gary. Can I just say something else really quick?
If it's nice.
It's nice, but it's nice to E.B. actually. I was thinking about, like, Jackie Woodson was my teacher at the New School. So there was like a book sale. Yes. Oh my God. That was a gift.
She's my hero. I mean, she's genius.
Yeah.
She's genius. And there's a line in the book. I mean, the line that she has said to me, a quote, and I'm quoting her. It's not in the book, but someone asked her about her process. And she says, for me, it's just simple. 3 little words. That's how you get stuff done. Butt in chair.
Yes, absolutely.
Butt in chair.
That is the truth. So there was a book sale there, and her books, absolute. There's no question. That is the hardest part in a way. It's like going to face that dragon, right? The monster, that's the scary part, is to sit your butt in the chair and do it. After that, it gets easier, and that doesn't change. But what I wanted to tell you was there was a book sale, and they were selling her books, and I brought my kids, and my son Michael saw the book, saw The Other Side, and he goes, "Oh my God, that book!" I go, "Well, you know it?" He goes, "Oh my God, we have this in my classroom." That book was like, he clutched it to his chest. It was the most beautiful thing. And then, of course, I bought it. I think I bought them everything anyway. But that book just touched him so, so much. And then I was doing a school visit. I write young adult novels as well. And I was doing a school visit in a high school. And I was talking to a boy, and I said something about Jackie Woodson was my teacher. And I started naming like books, older books she wrote. She wrote. He goes, "What I really love of her is the book The Other Side." A kid in high school. Think about that. It stayed with him all that time. How beautiful is that? How beautiful is that?
It's a book of genius. Yeah, it is. It really is.
It is. I still have it up on my bookshelf. I love that book. Yes. But anyway, I know we could talk forever, but you guys have been so amazing. I would like to have you both come back and talk about a different book of yours, if that's okay.
I want to talk about our book, your
we'll
book
do
that
that
you and I
too.
have done as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. But this has been a wonderful. Thank you so much. I feel ready. I'm going to go now. I feel ready now. Thank you guys so much, and thank you to our listeners. Thank you for listening to this episode, and take care.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.